Hello students, welcome back. So this is our second module on non-conventional sources of energy. Previous class we have seen the difference between non-conventional and conventional sources of energy with the different examples for each energies. And we have also seen what are the main features of a good source of energy. Okay, like mass available per unit energy, then their pollution free nature, that means least polluting, uh, and cheaper rate cost wise. So based on certain such criteria, we have seen that hydrogen is the best available energy source. Okay, so today in today's session we will make some specific reference to a particular source of energy that is called solar energy. So solar energy is a very good example for non-conventional energy. There are many other such non-conventional energy sources like ocean energy source, okay, wind energy, and of course we have geothermal energy, and the most important one is solar energy because of many reasons. Okay, so this source has been there for millions and millions of years. From prehistoric time you can say we have been using it for various purposes, for getting warmth, for making hot things or making dry things, okay, for various other purposes. Even the rivers, all the lakes, we have all the other sources only because of the presence of sun. If there is no rain, if there is no sun, there is no rain. Okay, so basically all the water sources that we have today is because of the sun. And sun you can call as the primary source of energy for all animals, all living beings on the earth. And it has been calculated that the average annual solar energy falling on the earth is around 1.8 into 1016 joule. Okay. This is a very huge value. This is the total amount of energy calculated by scientists that falls on the earth. Okay. So you must keep in mind that earth is only one of the member in the solar system. There are many other planets, and here what we shown is that what we have shown is the energy falling on earth around. Okay, average energy in a year. And interestingly you can see that this much of energy is almost 20,000 times more than what we actually consume. Okay, so we consume much less than what is falling on the earth. That means there is a lot of energy in excess which are not being utilized. And we have not, even though we have the energy crisis, but still we are failing to utilize or to exploit this energy falling on the earth. So the main intention purpose in front of us is to finding technology, making technology so that we can effectively convert all solar energy into useful applications. So anyway, we have been doing this process from time immemorial on prehistoric time itself. We have started our process of taming or harnessing the solar energy for our day-to-day applications. But still this time we haven't 100% success. We haven't attained 100% success in converting the entire solar energy into our useful purposes. So things are going on, efforts are going on towards that direction. And as we have seen the total energy falling on the earth in a year, you can write in the previous case you can write in 1.8 into 1016 joule. The same thing you can also write like this: 180 billion megawatt. This is tremendously huge energy which we cannot even imagine about. So in more quantitatively you can write this 180 into 10 raised to 8 megawatt, or as 18 into 10 raised to 15 joule. So these are all simple numerical values, but still it is a very huge, incredibly large value. And it would be nice to know some interesting aspects of sun, some basic ideas you might have perhaps come across in your school days. Is first of all, it is a sphere of hot gases, okay, where the temperature is going to million kelvins, okay, 10 raised to 6 kelvins, like that, where things usually exist in plasma form. You must be knowing that there are solid matter can exist in solid, liquid, gases, and there is a fourth state that is called plasma. So here things may exist in plasma form also, and the size is gigantic, you can see here. Okay, so it is 100 times the radius of the sun is 100 times that of Earth. So that's a big value. So there is no comparison for Earth and Sun, in fact. So in the coming slide we will see a comparative picture of Earth and Sun. Then you will surprise to see that how small the Earth is. Okay, and its glowing surface, it has different parts, actually different layers. There are inner layers and outer layers, and you may be knowing that the glowing outer surface, the surface layer is called photosphere. It is shown in the picture, photosphere, and above the photosphere is the chromosphere. So that is reddish in color, you can chromosphere here, okay. And above the chromosphere is what is called corona, and this corona is the outermost layer, and that corona you can see during solar eclipse. So this is the picture taken of on a solar eclipse day. Okay, recently we had a solar eclipse. So what here you can see is moon is coming in between sun and earth. So and the moon is hiding the sun like a disc, like a black disc. So when the central portion is hidden, only you can see the outer corona glow. Okay, so this glow is called corona, in fact. So that is all about solar eclipse and the corona. And here a comparison is given. This is Earth and this is Sun, and you can see how small the Sun is. And usually what happens, from the Sun surface, the plasma or the hot gases may get erupted out, rise up with high velocity. So that may be of millions of kilometers high. And you can see such flares. This is called as solar flares. Solar flares are a common phenomena on the sun surface, and during solar flares it may disturb the electromagnetic field around the sun, and this may also disrupt the magnetic covering on the earth. So this may hamper our signal system and communication system. You must have heard about such events coming in news, okay, TV news and all. It usually come this kind of things. So solar flare is much bigger than the size of the earth. There's a very common phenomenon happening on the sun surface, and solar energy is actually not a single entity. So it is composed of so many different electromagnetic radiations. Okay, of course light is one of the component in solar energy, solar radiation. In addition to light, there are many other radiation, like of course we have the visible light, and you must have done such simple experiments during your school days using prism. When you pass the sun light through a prism, you get different colors, okay, with geos. So that is what is shown here in the graph. In the graph you can see. And another component is ultraviolet, whose wavelength is smaller than that of visible lights. So that is falling under this range. And we have thirdly the infrared radiations, so whose wavelength is larger than that of visible rays. So this way broadly the solar radiation can be classified into these three forms. And if you go a little bit further into details, you can see that the ultraviolet itself is of three types. Ultraviolet A is wavelength ranges from 315 to 400 nanometer, and ultraviolet B with the 280 to 315 nanometer, and ultraviolet C whose wavelength ranges from 100 nanometer to 280 nanometer. So after that it is followed by visible rays, of course, which contains red to violet wavelengths, and then followed by infrared A, infrared B, and infrared C. Okay, so this way you can see that there are 7 different components present in solar radiations. Each has its own application in different areas of science and technology. Mainly in our study we will be focusing on ultraviolet and visible. So they are used in producing solar photovoltaic cells. Okay, where radiation, when it falls on certain surfaces, current is created. Those current can be stored appropriately. They are called solar cell. And the most important concept that we want to study in this chapter is solar constant. This is nothing but the average energy emitted or average energy received on the Earth's surface per unit area. Okay, so it is the rate at which solar energy reaches the top of the atmosphere, and it is measured in watt per meter square. So this is an average value, because day and night it varies, in different seasons it varies. So what usually scientists do is they measure the energy falling on the Earth in different areas, different regions, different periods, different time, and then they find the average of this. Okay, so that is what is shown here. And this solar constant actually is suppose this is sun, and this is a small area, 1 meter by 1 meter area, and suppose you measure the energy falling in this surface in 1 second. This is a 1 meter square area, and suppose you measure it, then you will get this value. Okay, so you can say that solar constant is nothing but the energy falling in unit area in unit time. Okay, so what is actually energy per unit time per meter square? So solar constant is nothing but the average energy falling on the Earth from the sun in unit time per unit area. Okay, so that is compactly described here. Is the average amount of energy received in unit time on a unit area perpendicular to the sun's direction on the Earth from the sun. Okay, so this value is very important in designing various solar harvesting devices. So this may vary in different places, but this is average value all over the Earth. Okay, this value may be less in certain places which are near to the polar regions, and this may be high for certain regions which are near to the equatorial line. Okay, for example, in Europe like countries, they are closer to the polar regions where this value may be low, whereas for countries like India, okay, South Africa, Sri Lanka, etc., this value solar constant may be a little bit higher than what is shown here. But the average value is like this. This is a measured value, a scientifically calculated value. Okay, this solar constant can be expressed in different way. This is one way, 1353 watt per square meter, or you can also represent it as 1.353 kilowatt per square meter. So according to your convenience, you can represent it in different ways. So this is a value, but it has an implication. And another important concept of solar radiation is that they consist of different types of radiations. So they are classified as direct solar radiations, diffused solar radiation, and reflected solar radiation, in which the first two are very important, even though the third one is also important, but people mainly focus on direct solar radiation and diffuse solar radiation. So let us see. So direct solar radiation, also called direct beam solar radiation, and second one is diffuse solar radiation. So let's see what is the difference between them. So direct simply implies the radiation coming directly to the earth from the sun. That is actually called direct radiation. Direct. And diffuse one is something which falls first of all on the atmosphere. Atmosphere, we have a thick layer of thick envelope around the earth, that is called atmosphere. It is made up of gases, different gases. So in diffuse radiation, what happens? Solar radiation fall on this atmosphere, where from they scatter off by striking over different gas molecule, vapor, clouds, okay, dust particles, etc. They strike over it and they get diffused. So this is called diffuse radiations. Okay, so you can formally define it like this. So first one is direct beam radiation. So this is that radiation that has not been absorbed or scattered and reached the ground directly from the sun. So this is something we get without any passing through any material. Okay, directly receive something. So we call it direct beam radiation. This is the most important one for solar photovoltaic cells. So solar panels are kept toward this direct radiation, and this direct radiation we can convert into appropriate currents. Okay, so that can be utilized for various applications. Whereas we have another type of radiation that is called diffuse radiation. In diffuse radiation, solar radiation is received from the sun after its direction has been changed by reflection and scattering by the atmosphere. Okay, that is what I told you earlier. In the atmosphere, first of all, the radiation comes and scatters. So a picture is shown here to clarify this idea. Okay, so you cannot see any direct sun here. Direct sun rays are not coming. This is a winter season here, but still things are clear. Okay, still things are clear. So what we can understand is that here what is happening is sun rays are coming and falling in the clouds here, fog is here, and they get scattered. And this scattering of light is giving this illumination. It's brightening. Okay, so this is happening. This area is illuminated with the diffuse light, not with the direct light. Understand? So illumination can either be due to direct solar radiation or due to diffused solar radiation. So, and since the solar radiation is scattered in all directions in the atmosphere, diffused radiation comes to the earth from all parts of the sky. So that is another difference. Okay, diffuse radiation reaches from all parts to the earth, whereas direct radiation it should exactly come from the sun itself. So this is unidirectional. Okay, direct radiation is unidirectional. It should come from a single direction, whereas diffuse radiation that may come from any place. Usually, if you can see even in monsoon season, even in our place, so you can see even though sun is not visible, still things are clear. Okay, everything is clear daytime. So that is basically due to the scattering in the clouds. In clouds, sun rays falls, where from they scatter off and they get diverged. So every place is illuminated. So that is an example for diffuse radiation. Okay. So and finally you have the reflected radiation. In reflected radiation, for the ray here, scattering is not included. Okay. In diffuse radiation, you have seen scattering is the most important. Scattering means light falls on certain small particles and get into fragments. But in reflection, light falls on a surface and gets reflected, rebounds. So this may happen on vast grounds. Okay, it may happen. Vast grassy lawns may happen, as shown in the figure, or it may happen on vast shining icy plates in glaciers and polar regions. You can see in many European countries, you can see Antarctica, of course, you can see such things where solar radiation falls and get reflected suddenly. So that is an example for reflected radiation. And of course in roads, asphalt, we call asphalt. On roads also, light falls, then scatter. So that is also an example for reflected solar radiation. Okay, so this way solar radiation essentially comes to us in these three ways. Okay. So here is some questions which will check your knowledge or how much you understood the lessons. Enumerate different layers of sun. This is one question. We discussed elaborately about different layers of sun, and give the composition of solar radiation. You can give a broad composition or a detailed composition as per the situation demands. And what is solar constant is another question. We have well described what is a solar constant. Differentiate between diffused and direct radiation. Of course, this is also very clear. So I think you can write the answers to this question in an assignment. So here, you after watching this video thoroughly, go to your assignment section. That means in the Google Classroom, you can see a class work session where this question will be given. You write the answers to this question in a A4 sheet, or you try to reduce. Okay, confine your answers to a A4 sheet. After completing assignment, you can upload. Take a snap, take a photo snap using your mobile phone, and just upload to Google Classroom. So when you upload this to Google Classroom, automatically your attendance will be recorded. Okay. So with this, I would like to conclude today's session. Thank you all.